The moment I arrived in Tigray, northern Ethiopia, I realized how different it was here. There were no roads. We had to travel, we had to 4x4 across the desert landscape. Now, when you go to Africa, there are a lot of rules. They first have you get your vaccines, your malaria medicine, the perfect type of bug spray, and they warn you. They say, whatever you do, don't drink the water. Don't even brush your teeth with the water. Do not drink the water. Okay. So we roll up to the first village, and I step out of the car, and there are all of these Ethiopians just staring at me, looking at me like a foreign creature. You see, a lot of these people had never seen anyone with such light-colored skin before. So I had these kids walk up to me, and they would reach out, and they wanted to touch my arm. But when they did, they'd pull their hand back because they weren't sure what would happen. So we had a bit of an awkward situation. We're staring at each other. I had no way to verbally communicate with them. And I thought, this is interesting. I thought, okay, I'm gonna get my phone out and take some photos and then show them what's on the camera. Good idea. Proceeded to do this, and I'd flip the camera around and show them. They thought that was pretty cool. But then I thought, hey, let's do a selfie. Let's do a group selfie. I flip the lens around on my phone, have the selfie situation set up, and I take the photo. What happened next is something I will never forget. These kids were awestruck. They had never seen themselves before. You see, they had seen each other, of course, but they had never seen their own reflection. They were grabbing at my phone, trying to get closer to it. Can you imagine being 8 or 10 years old and not even knowing what you look like? It was a moment of irony for me because here for years, every day I can remember, I'm always worried about what I look like. Yet these kids, they have real struggles. You see, their big priority is just to survive to that next day. That's the moment that I knew that I was in Ethiopia for something more than just learning about the water crisis and charity water. Something much bigger was happening to me, for me. I realized I could help these children, but they could also help me. You see, when I arrived in Tigray, I was struggling with a bit of a purpose problem. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a purpose problem in your life, but I have had a few at various points. And I really believe that where passion, purpose, and skill collide, true bliss resides. But I was having a bit of a drought in that purpose category. From afar, my life looked fabulous. I had just become a New York Times best-selling author. My business was doing great. It was jet-setting with some fancy people across the globe. Yet there was this huge deficit in that purpose bucket, something much bigger than me. And the first few days in Ethiopia, I learned more about the water crisis. 800 million people globally do not have clean drinking water. But it was hard for me to understand because if you pick any spot on land, on this earth, and you dig, you will eventually reach clean drinking water. It takes about 2 days for the charity water rigs to drill and strike water, about $10,000 per well, and one well will serve 250 people for the rest of their lives. Now, only women fetch water. You see here, I witnessed these women carrying these clay pots for miles. Sometimes they'd be walking barefoot. But they were on a pursuit to fetch water that wasn't even clean. So this water is actually dirty. Can you imagine what they could do with their day if they had more time, not to fetch the water, but to have education, spend time with their families? Now, on the last day, I visited this one village, and I was walking back to the vehicle, and this little boy motioned over to me. He said, "Come here." So I come over toward him, and he said, "Give me some birr." Now, birr is the currency in Ethiopia. And I was thinking, oh, geez, what's going on here? And he shows me something in his hand. He said, "Give me 15 birr." He was trying to sell me a homemade Nokia phone made out of rocks. I had encountered this fellow entrepreneur in Ethiopia, and they had warned me, do not give anyone any money. You could create an absolute uproar. So I thought, I really want to make this purchase. We have to do this undercover. So I go over a little bit further from the crowd. And he said, 15 birr. I pulled out 10 birr. And he looked at me and he shook his head. Then he pulled out 2 seashells out of his pocket and he added it to this package. Now we're bargaining. He said, 15 birr. I couldn't help but smile. I reached out, I ended up giving him 20 birr. And he looked down and he was confused and then looked up at me with this huge smile. And the extra money was just my way of congratulating him on passing my test on negotiating. Thank you. When I arrived back home, I ended up doing a birthday campaign and asked my friends and family, please just, let's donate some money to build a well instead of gifts, in lieu of gifts. And so they did, and we ended up building a well. We raised more than $10,000, and more than 250 people will now have clean drinking water for the rest of their lives. What I want is I hope to play a role in creating more female entrepreneurs in Ethiopia. You know, I live in Las Vegas, and the world's largest observation deck, Ferris wheel, was just built there. $550 million. And every time I drive by, I can't help but think about the 55,000 wells that could have been built, or the 14 million people who could have clean drinking water. Now, it's no accident that I'm sitting here, standing here, telling you my story today, just like it wasn't an accident that I was in Ethiopia. I really believe we have the power to make a difference. This is solvable. And I hope you can join me. Worst case, you might put a dent in your purpose problem. Purpose problem or not, we have the ability to be so much bigger than ourselves. And I just encourage you to ask yourself, where does your passion, purpose, and skill collide? Thank you.